Each of us probably has that one game, whether it's great or not, that you've played multiple times, including different versions of it, and you will basically never get sick of it. Even if you only pick it up for a bit every once in a while, it was a huge part of your childhood, and maybe you first watched a sibling play it or played alongside them. It's a game that you've studied the development of and might wish for to be remade. You find yourself thinking about it on occasion, and when you do actually start playing it again, even if you're losing, you still have fun just because you like the game. And you'd say it's one of your favorite games of all time, regardless of its quality. What's that game for you? Let me tell you about mine. Hello, my name is Nathaniel Welch, and welcome to the beginning of Star Wars Month 2025 here on H7 Bus. Now, I know what you're thinking. May is almost over. If you're going to dedicate a month to Star Wars content, shouldn't this video have come out around the 4th or something? Yes, and that was the plan, but due to some circumstances, to quote Gandalf, I was delayed. So I'll be releasing the month's worth of content I had planned over the course of the next 2 weeks, and then next year, I swear that Star Wars Month will actually happen during the whole month of May. Once we're caught back up, I have some cool stuff coming up that I think you'll all enjoy as well, so I hope you like Star Wars Month, and I encourage you to stick around. Anyway, to kick it all off, I thought an episode of Video Game Purviewer would be best. Today, we'll be talking about Star Wars The Force Unleashed, which is that one game for me. Sure, after playing through it, I'm usually ready to put it back down for a while, but I replay it every couple years, and I've been doing so forever. For this episode, I played through TFU on the Xbox Series X. It was my first time doing so. All of my past experience with the game has been mostly spent on its PS3, Steam, and PSP versions. If you're wanting to play TFU nowadays, know that besides some old phone stuff, it has 3 different versions. There's the release on the DS, and then 2 others. There was an outsourced SD version made for the PS2, Wii, and PSP, and then there's the HD version, which I'd call the main version of the game, which was released on PS3, Xbox 360, and PC. The HD version is what was made in-house by LucasArts and is what I'm reviewing today. Though between the ports of the SD version, there is some difference in featured bonus content, if you're wanting to pick it up, you pretty much can't go wrong with the recent port on the Switch. It's the Wii variant in HD, given normal controls, and it runs at 60 FPS. With good old HD Force Unleashed, it's not that simple. Playing on a modern Xbox is certainly the most convenient way to play it, yet I would say that it's definitely not the most high fidelity. There's some almost glitches and weirdness I encountered when playing that I never did on PS3 or PC. Playing TFU through Steam with frame rate and graphical upgrades from the workshop is probably the best way to go. However, the Steam version has broken audio, and you have to import some files to make it work properly. If you know how to do all that, you'll end up with something sweet. But if you don't have an Xbox and don't want to go through all that config file hassle, you can stream the game on PS5/4 with PS Plus, but you'd probably have a better time playing it on PS3 at that point, so that may very well be the best way to play it. You just have to have both a copy of the game and a console that still works. At the end of the day, since playing on Xbox is so convenient, it may be the best way simply because of that, even though I had some issues. It's a great game nonetheless. One of the coolest parts of The Force Unleashed is its story. It's so tight that it even had a novelization and comic adaptation made of it that came out a month before its release, although it's sadly not canon anymore. The game was originally meant to bridge the gap between Star Wars Episodes 3 and 4, and it does so epically. And so does Solo and Rogue One, but come on, it could still fit. Bring it back. The game wasn't just created willy-nilly either like some others. The devs actually met with George Lucas about all its stuff. Anyway, you play as Darth Vader's secret apprentice, codenamed Starkiller. Your job is to bring Darth Vader's enemies to justice. This includes rebels, Jedi, and anyone else who gets in Vader's way. You're more than just a Sith assassin though. All the tests, trials, and training you go through is to prepare you for one thing: to, together with Vader, kill the Emperor. However, you're not ready for that yet. There's still a few more missions you must undertake before you can fulfill your destiny. So, Joined by your best friend, a comedic and dangerous droid named Proxy, and Starkiller's love interest / pilot, Juno Eclipse, you get to journey through an action-packed game about hope and redemption that is both so awesome and so authentically Star Wars. It's good fun. Conceptualization for the game began in 2004, and it was originally set to release in 2007, but ended up being pushed back to 2008. As far as I understand, it was basically pitched as a Star Wars superhero game, and given the medium, that's why they decided to crank up the strength of all the Force powers in comparison to the franchise's films. And use of two systems known as Euphoria and Digital Molecular Matter, both almost AI light, added to the design of the game as more of a Force power sandbox rather than a lightsaber hack and slash. LucasArts also got to work with ILM on lighting, special effects, and motion capture, with the end result being a very graphically impressive game at the time. If you're interested in learning some more tidbits about the development of The Force Unleashed, I encourage you to check out Sam Witwer's YouTube channel. Sam played Starkiller, and alongside his good friend David Collins, who played Proxy and worked as the game's sound designer, they played through the game over the course of a few streams, and not only did they tell all about the development, but they interviewed other team members who had worked on the game as well. It's called The Force Unleashed Dev Commentary if you're interested. Star Wars The Force Unleashed was finally released on September 16th, 2008, and met with okay response. It sold really well and super duper fast, but only averaged a 69 out of 100 on Metacritic across all platforms. The HD version alone averages out to a 70 if we're counting the year later PC port that didn't review as well as its console brethren. Critics praised the HD version for its story, visuals, music, of course, acting, and physics, with most hangups being centered around the gameplay experience. The majority of those critiques appear to have been in relation to the game's level design, difficulty, boss fights, and the clear presence of glitches in the game. Not a bad or game-breaking amount, but you'll no doubt encounter a few. Overall though, while it's not a perfect game, TFU seems to be fondly looked upon by Star Wars fans, and it did win a few awards that'll certainly keep it somewhat remembered by others. Now, I really like Star Wars. And I don't know that I necessarily like it any less than I used to, but it's not nearly as big of a part of my life as it was a few years ago. Back in the day though, meaning 2008, 9, or whenever the heck my brother and I got The Force Unleashed, considering I was born in 2005, the game was the cheese. Between watching the movies for the first time, loving the Clone Wars micro series, playing LEGO Star Wars and with Star Wars Legos, as well as experiencing the release of 3D Clone Wars episodes in real time, it's a wonder I had capacity to engage with anything else, let alone anything Star Wars related. But man, The Force Unleashed was awesome, and I have no idea when I first played it or what device it was on, but I know I always enjoyed watching my brother play it, and eventually found myself enjoying it as well. It kind of had, and almost still has, this mythic quality to me. Not just the story and world, but the game itself. There came a point during some time from 2019 to 2021, I can't remember exactly when, that time period is a blur for obvious reasons, where after feeling like I hadn't really experienced it and that I couldn't get enough of it, I proceeded to break it out on the PSP, and after beating it on there, I got it on Steam and beat it twice front to back. And since then, I revisit the game every couple years, with the dev commentary being something I'll listen to more often than that. It really is one of my favorite games. I have my problems with it, as we'll discuss, but it's just so special to me. Part of what made TFU so awe-inspiring to me as a kid is how good it looked and presented itself. Obviously it was unique in tone, but it opened like a movie and seemed not too far from the Clone Wars to me. I mean, upon opening it up, already the game's awesome. The main theme and the menu screen are so cool. Sticking with that latter thought for a bit, I really like the game's HUD and menu design. It's totally themed after the Empire, and I think that makes it kind of timeless. I know we live in an age of sterility and conformity nowadays, but this was a 7th gen game, darn it. The PS3 XMB was superb and is still praised by folks for a reason, and it's no wonder you see people post about the Xbox 360 startup screen all the time. gaming was still full of personality at this point, in that there was still a lot of experimentation, risk-taking, and inventing going on by everyone rather than just some few. Stuff from then was distinctive, and it's not like we're not going to one day say that about games from this current generation, but I think we'll reference so in a much less wide-ranging manner. So, while it is an early 7th gen game, I'd say it does feel a little extra PS3 than 360. The PS3 was infamously difficult to develop for, especially if you were trying to make your game multi-platform, and when LucasArts got their PS3 GDK, TFU was already pretty far into development. I think having to tailor their design a bit to the PS3 makes playing the game all the more evocative to me. All it took was a little bit of depth of field and each environment being saturated with one main color. Add in classic revolutionary 7th gen mocap on now aging models, and what's not to like? Here on the internet, I've heard multiple times the sentiment that the PS3 version of the game looks, runs, and plays a little better than the 360 version, but is overall more glitchy. And I guess I agree, as I didn't encounter any glitches I'm used to running into. But yeah, there were just some oddities with the 360 version that's left me wondering if they were due to the Series X's backwards compatibility. I really don't know. What I do know is that The Force Unleashed is just good Star Wars. The music is epic and the cinematics are awesome. They're shot and animated in such a way that feels like the films. And like those, the game starting with an opening crawl is a treat. It's a defining trait of Star Wars that immediately gets you in the mindset to explore the galaxy far, far away. And the game's got great graphics, for its time of course, that still hold up decently in a stylized sense today. TFU hasn't graphically aged as well as something like Uncharted, but it also hasn't been remastered either. I think the game still looks good, but some textures are definitely really muddy, and some places look better than others. The mocap during cutscenes is still passable though. You can read characters' expressions plenty well, and the game is pretty enough that some of its vistas are very pleasing. You'll find yourself in some different locales as you play through the game, and the levels you play through are designed pretty distinctively. Talking about Poppin', it's well hidden in the more enclosed levels, but it is noticeable and distracting in the open ones. Playing on modern hardware, the game could obviously run at a higher resolution with a higher frame rate with higher thresholds for pop-in, but it just hasn't been optimized in that way. It still operates like how it was designed for the older systems. So, judging by those 7th gen standards, the pop-in is acceptable. Even with pop-in, TFU's worlds and places actually feel pretty real. They're not just some random thing formed for the player to progress through. That is what they are, it just usually doesn't feel that way. There's places you can see that you can't go, and locked doors you can't progress through because you have no need to, but there's also a bunch of side areas to discover. The game's environmental storytelling is great, and even the way story is told through wardrobe is great. That is one of my favorite things, so seeing it done so well here is awesome. You see that Starkiller pretty much only has scraps to work with, and that tells you something about his relationship with Vader. It may make you wonder what's motivating him at all. Is it fear, desire for power, or something else? During our first cutscene with Juno, we learned simply from her hologram that she is not as happy and put together as she used to be. What's made her that way, and why is she on our team now? Storytelling through costume design is tight, y'all. TFU has a lot going for it, but as I've already mentioned, its music is fantastic. The game's main theme is imposing and just sounds so cool. The game's original scoring is nice, but for a lot of the game you'll be hearing legacy tracks from the franchise's older films and games. And that's something they totally could have messed up and done poorly, choosing tracks that don't at all fit thematically with levels, let alone the game. But hey, the song choices are good, and were selected to take you on a journey from the prequels to the originals, which fits with the time of the game. All legacy tracks present fit very well with the gameplay and the other scenarios they show up in. The sound design is also excellent, mostly. Hearing stuff shatter, creak, bend, break, or warp as you slash or force push your way through them is satisfying. Stuff sounds realistic, probably not in reality, but definitely how I'd expect it to in a gritty Star Wars video game world that you happen to basically be a superhero in. And every iconic blaster and ship noise you'd think to hear is present. All the dudes you kill are voiced and stuff too, so that's cool, I guess. The only problem I have with the game's sound design is how almost echoey, distant, and out of place Starkiller's footsteps sound. It's not something I'd ever noticed before this, so it could be a port issue, but anyway, it's a small detail that most people probably won't notice depending on what kind of cans, if any, they're wearing as they play through the game. Let's dive into the meat of TFU. It's gameplay. Something I feel it still does better than many games today is how much interactivity and game world influence you have because of the game's physics and because of DMM and Euphoria. Again, this is not a lightsaber game. It's a Jedi sandbox with a solid plot. You can chop down trees, bend doors, throw people, blow stuff up, and a whole lot of it is unnecessary. But the game still gives you the option and ability. I mean, talk about immersion, it's honestly incredible. Stormtroopers try to grab onto the guardrails as you push them off a bridge. Heavier objects feel heavier when trying to control them, and though it is technically a hack and slash, so your lightsaber doesn't chop through opponents like it should, your swings have real weight to them. You've got a lot of ways you can approach every situation between your variety of melee abilities and force powers. And what I love about games with a fleshed out combat system like The Force Unleashed is that they glorify player expression, because you get to approach each situation however you want to. Go ahead and block and slash your way through the game, or just force push people or things into people the whole time, or shock them all, or move between all that. You'll be doing so in levels that are fun and well designed. Sure, the game's lighting hasn't aged great, and there isn't a ton of enemy variety, but there's so much stuff to mess around with. It's basically like playing toys. And in this case, I don't just mean like dragging stormtrooper faces across the ground. I mean like stacking rocks, putting obstacles in front of moving TIE fighters, and messing around with stuff like explosive barrels. There's also often multiple factions in a level at once, so sometimes you have these cool, the enemy of my enemy is my friend moments where you team up with one to take down the other before resuming killing each other. This does bring me to a critique of the game I have though. While the level design is all super good, the quality of the enemy placement in them is inconsistent. It's usually done okay and is mostly not unfair, but it's whack at times, and every once in a while it'll be good. Something else you have that you can do while sandboxing your way around is to fulfill bonus objectives and collect these glowy cubes called holocrons. I find both things to be fun. Bonus objectives are not too difficult to do, holocrons aren't too difficult to find, and both reward you for playing the game. TFU has a level-based progression system, which I love that it has, by the way. When you level up, you get force points that you can use to upgrade certain aspects of your character. Completing bonus objectives will give you extra force points, and so will holocrons, but because there's many hidden around each level to collect, holocrons also unlock a bunch of customization options for you. Stuff like alternate costumes and lightsaber crystals, some that change your blade's color, and others that'll give you different passive buffs. If you want to know just how crazy the customization and power increases can get, if you wanted to, you could play through the game as Vader's apprentice, Qui-Gon Jinn, wielding a black lightsaber and basically shooting force lightning out of your toes. Since there's much to do and an absurd amount of power to gain, on lower difficulties, the game is actually kind of relaxing. What we've got has fairly polished core gameplay. This is a good time to mention that the game's traversal and platforming feels fine, and is level-based with a linear story, but not super focused like a game like Uncharted is. So, you just spend an hour sandboxing your way through a cool place, fight a boss, and then move on. It's nice. And though playing on lower difficulties is relaxing, Apprentice and Sith Warrior, I do totally recommend playing through the game on Sith Lord difficulty, or Sith Master when you unlock it, because of how much more challenging the boss fights get. It makes them much more fun, and you know I love me some boss fights. Except for Kazdan Paratus. In general, the boss fights are fun though. They've got some QTE implementation that is pretty tasteful as well. One big problem with TFU that you'll feel most during boss fights is how often you'll feel like your attack should be hitting, but because your opponent is in the middle of having invulnerability frames, nothing happens. So boss fights are fun, but this is the biggest source of frustration during them. Also because it feels like Starkiller doesn't have enough invulnerability frames, which will cause you on multiple occasions throughout the game to get stuck in an inescapable, or nearly so, barrage of lasers or attacks that you will be unable to recover from, leading to your death. So, again, while this issue isn't only present in boss fights, they're where you'll feel it most. And what makes it such a problem is that it feels unresponsive, like the game is ignoring you, in a world that was designed to do the opposite. If you want to play through the game multiple times, The Force Unleashed does technically have New Game Plus through level select and the ability to change difficulty in the options. But if you want the achievement for having beat the game on that harder difficulty, you have to start a new playthrough entirely, which means, welcome back to level 1. Throughout the whole of the game, the acting is pretty stellar, and the dialogue is written very well. Both feel authentic to Star Wars, and character dynamics are super tangible. It sucks that we missed out on some more main story and content due to deadlines that would have given us a closer look at the characters. If that's something you're interested in after playing, the book and the SD version of the game have the remnants of some of that. The HD version did get DLC though, only one of which is canon to the main story. The DLC can be pricey depending on where you're getting the game, and isn't very long, but is fun and interesting, with two of them being wild what-ifs based off of the non-canon ending of the game that take place during A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. Though content was cut, I'd say that the game doesn't feel rushed. I know that's something people often say about the second one. There was cut content in both cases. The game has a compelling story and really good characters that almost makes you wish the game was a different genre so we could focus on them and the plot more. Anyway, I recommend playing through it twice and seeing both endings, but at least go for the canon one. The DLC based off the dark side ending won't make a lick of sense though. The ending is satisfying and the intro level is incredible. I don't know who came up with it, but whoever it is literally a genius. If you haven't played TFU and you are a Star Wars fan that somehow doesn't know about the game's intro, you need to, no spoilers, experience it for yourself ASAP. It's so memorable, and it serves as a good tutorial. In general, I'd say the game does a fine job at tutorializing you. It encouraging experimentation certainly helps with that. There's also a training room that's cool. You can practice your moves through completing certain trials, and I can definitely see it being useful if it's your first time playing. Some of the trials are more than just teaching, and are actually challenging and quite fun. Alright, so this is the training room that I was talking about. You've got all these challenges ahead of you and some tutorials that you can do. It pretty much is just to get you more comfortable with your abilities, and it's more excuses to fight some guys and just other stuff to do in the game, right? But I think the one that I had the most trouble with, if I remember correctly, is the push challenge. So I just wanted to try it again and see how it goes. I remember it taking me many tries, so let's see if it does this time. So what makes it so difficult is you only have access to your force push. You can't swing your lightsaber, can't dash, can't do any of that. You can only use your force push. But you have a limited amount of force meter, and a limited amount of time. So eventually you do all the pushing and you're running out of time because your thing's not refilling fast enough and there's no more explosive barrels to push around. Let's see how it goes.
To complete this challenge, beat all stormtroopers in the allotted time using only force push.
Okay. Alright. Just gonna take my time. Go slow. That didn't work. Come on, push. Push. Come on, explode. Alright. Okay. Didn't mean to get that guy. And we're out of time. Alright. It doesn't seem too hard, but you just gotta be really efficient and not miss.
Beat all stormtroopers in the allotted time using only force push.
Okay. Can I block? No, I can't. Yeah, because if I could deflect the lasers back at them more intentionally, they would totally be doomed. Totally be doomed. Did I do this? Only 2 tries? Oh, okay. Wow. I expected that to be more difficult. I'm gonna do it one more time. I just want to see if I just am better at it now. Okay.
just these two guys. Doable. Hey, alright. Yeah. I think I'm just better at it now. Anyway, it's just that kind of stuff. Just interesting little setup challenges for you to beat.
The Force Unleashed tells a patented Star Wars story. It tackles themes of love, hope, redemption, betrayal, good versus evil, and light versus dark. It's about family, togetherness, and all that stuff. We're shown these through the perspective of a very tragic and certainly broken protagonist who goes on his hero's journey. And that's not to say other characters don't also play a thematic part, they're just well written in such a way that their arcs are supplementary to Starkiller's. Their development points out to you what's going on in him. And what's going on is that he finds himself making connections with others and has to decide who he's gonna be and what he really cares about. For such a crazy game, TFU has a surprisingly grounded plot, especially for it being an action-first video game. Starkiller's story almost mirrors and has similarities to Luke Skywalker's in a way. Luke is such a beloved character because of how relatable and flawed he is, yet he cares for his friends and believes in doing the right thing, making him all the more inspiring. I think if you personally connect with Luke, you should be able to do so with Starkiller too, and be driven to change, action, and possibly thankfulness through the conclusion of the story and the development of his character. Star Wars The Force Unleashed is most certainly a good game. Pick it up if you're a Star Wars fan, and if you're not but are interested, look for it on sale. The thing is, the game is incredibly fun. It's got bugs, it's got glitches, it's got creases, but you can still have a great time with it. Even though it objectively loses points for some lack of polish, the gameplay is still very enjoyable, as long as any of its other issues don't frustrate you. I love it. I think it's a 7 out of 10. Really good for Star Wars fans, but while other players will still have fun with the sandbox, they won't enjoy the whole package as much. It's an avid children situation. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more video game previewers, then you should like and subscribe because there'll always be more on the way. What do you think about The Force Unleashed? What is your that one game? Let me know in the comments. God bless, and get ready for some more Star Wars action coming your way.